Ladies and gentlemen, we got a new episode of the No ID Podcast. This is episode 4. No ID Podcast comes from normal people doing extraordinary things. I got my sister here, my best friend, my confidant, my ride or die, Kiara Davis. Some of you may know her on any social media platform as Kiki J Productions. Kiara?
What's up, y'all?
Kiara, we're going to get into a couple of things, go around your background, but that's okay?
That's fine with me.
All right. So you've been doing extraordinary things for years, right? It's a little known thing that nobody really knows about you. You actually graduated from college with your associate's degree before you got your high school diploma. Tell me about that.
Well, I started at Tidewater Community College when I was going into my junior year of high school. And I only had about 2 or 3 credits left before I could actually get a diploma. So I was going to graduate early anyway. So I came home with a letter. My mom, dad, and you, of course, were some of my biggest supporters getting me through that. I noticed that once I left I got my associates in May. 1 week. The following week, I went to prom. After that, 3 weeks later, I got my high school diploma and continued along my education at Old Dominion University, where I got my bachelor's in communications and filmmaking with minors in English and music production. And I went on to Cambridge College to get my master's in business management.
So you can say that you're highly educated.
Most definitely. And I noticed that since I've gotten that associate's degree, I see a more and more reoccurring trend that I see it a lot more in the newspapers, that more parents are gearing their kids towards that as well.
So would you say you're like a pioneer or unspoken hero when it comes to developing your college education and before your high school education?
Most definitely, I would say that.
So let's go ahead and talk about this. When you were in college, right?
Yes.
What was your major?
Communications.
Communications. So what did you want to do with that communications degree?
Originally, I started off, I wanted to be a big-time news reporter for CNN. That was my goal, was to get to CNN.
Right.
As I went along, I didn't want to specialize in anything, so I kind of took a mass of classes in communications and realized that I kind of like being behind the scenes more and dealing the public relations part aspect of it, and sometimes being in front of the camera, so I like to be a jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. Okay, so this is a little known fact. Okay, Kiara, you did a movie a couple of years ago.
It'll be 11 years come August. We started that. Started that class in August, and I turned in that final project that December. So it'll be 11 years come December this year.
So you hit your 10-year anniversary.
Yes.
Okay, so it's been 10 years of
Yes.
this film. I had my first casting role. I was the main star.
Yeah, you were one of my main characters. Yes.
The star.
Okay.
What process, like what inspired you to come up with that film? What was like your backstory of that film?
Well, my backstory on that film is that you always see stories of women and their dating challenges and how hard they go on these dates and they look in all the wrong places for a man, but you never really get to see a man's perspective of it. You know, every dating movie is typically centered around women, so sometimes you want to see the male's perspective and instead of turning it into a chick flick, turn it into a man flick instead.
So it was like what's that movie that Taraji P. Henson redid? What Men Really Want, and it was like What Women Really Want when Mel Gibson originally did it back in the early 90s. But it was your spin on it, like your spin.
I put all my family in this movie, as you know. You were in it. Our mom was in it. She was a voiceover, and then she had an actual role in it.
Okay.
Our dad, he was the wisdom seeker. Everybody would go to him to seek wisdom.
The OG.
He was the OG.
Yeah.
They were craft services too, which means they catered it because I couldn't afford to feed anybody. I was a broke college student working at Wendy's making $7.50 an hour.
I think we all going to this industry broke. Just gonna be honest with you, because we go in broke. The script and everything. How did you manifest the script?
I sat in class where we had to come up with an idea. We all had to. So how it was, you had to produce a 3 to 5 minute film. You had to create your own film, and then you had to crew on your other classmates' films as well. So it was like you started building those relationships like the beginning of the semester. So we started off where we made a silent film where no one talked. So that was our first project, and I made a silent film and then we had to make a still film where it was photos running in. It taught you everything from pre-production to production to post-production to promotions and the advertising side of your film.
Hmm. Okay. So I'm gonna be honest with you, right? Once you start getting into film, I was looking and like I enjoy it. You were actually one of the people that actually got me into watching the indie films, the Sundance films, and stuff like that. Is that like a goal of yours to one day maybe go to the Sundance Film Academy and have a
That's
film?
something I'm working on in 2020 is to start that process now because it's such a long application process to get to Sundance. And then, as everyone knows, it takes a lot. From my experience, when I made that 3 to 5 minute film, that was about 3 weeks worth of work on a rush job, from production to editing to planning to scripting to storyboarding, all those aspects of it. So when you have to turn around and produce a 30-minute film or hour and a half or a 2 hour film, is that much more involved in it.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. 'Cause, I'm just a movie goer, so I just see everything on the back end. Like my goal is to one day be on the screen. Um,
That's why it always takes so long. People say, well, what's taking so long for the new Black Panther movie to come out?
mhm.
Because you got to go back. You got to go through readings, table reads. You got to cast. You got to go through the production process. You have to plan in pre-production because a lot of films tend to get killed in pre-production because that's how you determine your budget and your backing. So that's why people say, well, I need to hit so and so amount of money in the box office. Yeah, to pay off that production that you spent $1 million doing.
Really?
Because you have to pay off your finances and your backers. And most people who are producers, that means they put money to back that film and they want to see a return on their investment.
So how do you become like a producer on a film? You like hit somebody and like, hey, I want to produce this film. Da, da, da.
It depends upon your capital. If you work with a major network, if you say you are employed by a major network like Paramount Pictures or
Okay.
Paramount Studios, for instance, they tend to have that capital where it's usually like an investment firm that's backing it. They have to have that capital to back it. It's kind of like playing on the stock market in the film world.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What advice like let's say I got the film I want to do, right? How do I go about getting the funding and submitting everything?
It takes patience, and sometimes you're going to be that one person operation. For me, I'm a one woman operation. I do everything.
So you're 100% independent.
I'm 100% independent because I can't afford to pay anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about networking. It's about building those relationships. It's about sometimes going to go crew on somebody's film so that you can get the production credits, so that you can get to the jobs that do pay. It's about developing those relationships. It's a constant development of those relationships. I've worked on a horror film, and I've never done a horror film. And I wasn't completely behind that project because I didn't understand it. But by me doing that, I've crewed and I got those production credits, and I've done those things.
I saw the horror film.
Yes.
It was a couple of years ago. I liked it.
Yeah.
Okay. It took a while for appreciation, but I liked it. And the reason I liked it because you were in it. And, she's my sister. So I'm 100% I'm behind you on whatever film or whatever product or production that you got going on. I enjoyed that film 1,000%. Because I was like, that's my baby sister up there on the screen, and this is an independent film. So, and you was talking about like your network and your connections, right? Have you connected with anybody in the industry? Have you gotten...
I started off, I used to watch, so as everybody knows, I watch a lot of indie TV. So at the time, Cox 11 used to run this show called Seven Cities.
I remember
and it was very interesting. They put like a spin on like what goes on in the seven cities, and they were a Black-owned production company.
Really?
So that's how I wound up just Googling and sending the email, and it turned into me developing that relationship where I got the crew on Seven Cities. Then we went on to do that horror film, and then that led me on to, it gave me a chance to see how to run, if I was to go and run my own production company at that time, it gave me that knowledge to see the background of it and get into finance and it, how you have to work with different people and manage different personalities and keeping everybody afloat and keeping your production afloat and sticking to that schedule. Because once you fall off schedule, everything costs you money.
Yeah, it does. Have you ever ran into any type of divas or prima donnas in the film industry?
Yes, I have. I have ran into them. But, you manage them in their own way. I've managed them when I've done internships. I had a background in radio. I've been in news. So I've done television work. So yes, you do run into prima donnas, but you just gotta manage them because at the end of the day, I started at the lowest man on the totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're the lowest man on the totem pole and you're the intern, everybody's like, "Oh, you don't know what you're doing," but you're there to get that experience. And then once they get off their divitude or devotude attitude, they come back and realize that, hey, that was me at one time. They do come back and apologize.
They do.
They do.
So connections, can you usually don't ask for this, but you have any big names or names that you've worked with that have given you some tools of the game, some jewels of the game?
Most definitely. One of them is Cliff Johnson. He's my friend on Facebook. I met Cliff through a networking event, and we started off on The Art of Love.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his play that he was turned into a screen. So I came to be behind the scenes and do like the social media work and those type of things. That production fell through, but we have a new production called Shh, which is a documentary that talks about childhood sexual abuse. Through that, I've gone to different things where I've ran across local celebrities here. Monty Ross is one of them that most people don't even know he's here, but he's here. He's worked with Spike Lee. Like, that was Spike Lee's right-hand man on all of Spike's major films.
Did they give you any advice, any jewels that you want to share?
It takes patience. You have to have patience in this industry, and you're going to do things that you didn't want to do. For me, I don't like to edit anything, but that's kind of where I've always landed, is editing something.
So you gotta be like, how can I say that? Somebody told me one time, this is a true story. They told me you gotta at least have 10 to 15 years of due diligence and work if you want to break into this industry before you actually get your big break. Because there's a lot of people out there that just either give up or they did have that woulda, shoulda, coulda moment.
You can't live in those moments. I tell people I've walked out of jobs, I've left relationships that at that particular time I was like, well, what if I would have stayed there? But looking at where I'm at now, I'm glad I did because it made me that much more determined to go and do my own thing and not build somebody else's dreams, but to build my own.
Now, you have a lot of tricks of the trade, right? You
Yes.
wear a lot of hats. What are some of your other hats that you wear? Matter of fact, just go down the list of the hats that you have.
Okay, so in my 9 to 5, I work in advertising sales fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that as my regular 9 to 5. I am the vice president of Do Girl 2 Productions with my mom, and she's the president. So I help her run the back end. I own my own public relations firm and agent and media company where we build campaigns. We do media buy-in. We get you a marketing plan in place. We manage your social media. We can plan your event. We can come out and do your photography, videography, whatever you need. We're all inclusive boutique firm.
What's the name of that?
Kiki J Productions.
Okay, just making sure I gotta get the name drop in there.
Yeah, I write. I do spoken word. I write scripts. I call myself a creativepreneur, which means I'm a creative entrepreneur. So I spend a lot of time using my creativity to turn my creativity into capital so that I can continue to flow through my creativity.
Say that word again.
A creativepreneur.
I like that. I'm gonna buy that one off of you. That's a dope word, creativepreneur. You know how some people say that you gotta have. I'm just speaking. A lot of people say, man, you gotta have 3 sources to do this. That's wrong. Okay, you have to be a creativepreneur, is what you say, and you have to find a way to take your passion and turn it into making money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're doing. So I commend you on that. That's my hand clap. I'm heavy-handed, so I can't do a lot of clapping. Now you're in film.
Yes.
Okay. Name your top 5 directors.
Kathy Hughes from TV One, because she paved the way for a lot of women in media, such as myself. Ava DuVernay, because she didn't pick up a camera until she was in her late 30s. So when people say if you're not somewhere by the time you turn 25 or 30, look at Ava DuVernay. She didn't pick up her first one to start directing until she was 34.
Really?
She didn't pick up her first camera to direct anything until she was 34. Mm-hmm. Spike Lee, of course.
Oh man, Spike is a genius.
Because he touches on cultural things. Touches on cultural appropriations and those things, which are important, which his movies are still very relevant in today. Hype Williams, because I grew up on the MTV, TRL, BET circuit where he was the man that was always directing the music videos, and he had like the dopest music videos at the time. And Steven Spielberg, he's timeless.
Right, he is timeless.
He's timeless.
I didn't know Steven Spielberg directed The Color Purple.
Yes, he did.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that neither. I just want to throw that little unknown fact that I didn't know. So the films today that we see, one that I know recently just came, well, not recently, came out around Thanksgiving last year, was Queen and Slim,
Mm-hmm.
by Lena Waithe. She wrote it, directed it, black main cast, and everything like that. And I watched Lena Waithe when she was on the show on Showtime. How did you feel about that film?
I thought it took a very interesting perspective, and it helped for us as African Americans in the industry to see that you don't necessarily have to have the big backing of the studio. Because Lena Waithe didn't have the big backing of the studio. She didn't have a whole lot of big names in that movie. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, it was the promotion behind it, the way the content was written, and what she was portraying and what she was touching upon. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I found unique when I was reading up on Queen and Slim was that back in the day when we were enslaved and we used to go to the north to become free, and Queen and Slim, they went to the south to go free.
Yeah, he was going to go to Cuba.
He was going to go to Cuba. And it touched on when, all the different, it kind of reminded me of the Underground Railroad, how they had those passages of where they were going to get to Cuba. Like they went to this person, that person, this person, that person to become free. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I thought was really unique when I watched the film was when they were trying to get out of the white family's garage. Mm-hmm. When the police were looking for them, the black police officer lifted up the garage and saw where they were at, and he just let them fly through. But when you got to the end of the movie, when they were trying to get on the plane to go to Cuba, the black man who they were riding with in the trailer park turned them in for the money.
$250,000, yeah.
He turned them in for money. So we as African Americans have to do a better job of supporting each other and not always constantly bashing each other either, because that's what Hollywood expects. That's why we don't see a lot of, in today's time, we don't see a lot of all black sitcoms. And when we do see them, they last for a hot second and then they're gone. Mm-hmm. Because everybody takes to social media to bash it.
It's like it's like the scorpion and the frog. You know the story of the scorpion and the frog? I think I told you that.
Or it's the crabs in the barrel mentality. Like, right. I'm going to pull someone down so that I can get up.
Yeah, that's true. And we try and figure out how did we, as crabs, get into this barrel, and instead of us helping each other out while we're pushing each other down just to crawl out.
I've seen it in jobs I've had. I've seen it when I've done different things in radio. I've seen it across this entire time I've been in media.
Yeah, I see it because I'm a comedian, and I've seen it on the comic circuit. I've seen it numerous times, and it's a horrible disease in my opinion. And for most people that don't know what a scorpion and a frog is, the story goes like this: there's a scorpion, there's a frog. Okay, there's a stream of water, and they're trying to get to the other side because that's where their food and everything is at, and they're trying to get over there to there. So there's also lily pads in that stream, and neither one don't know how to get over. So the scorpion comes up with an idea to get on the frog's back, and they're gonna leap across there to get to the other side together. When they get over to the other side, the scorpion stabs the frog in the back. And then the frog goes, "Why did you stab me? I'm a scorpion. That's what I do. I stab people in the back." And that's usually what happens in media or anybody in any type of professional environment, or any environment as far as work or chasing after the goals. I don't say dreams. I'm going to say goals. Because dreams, you can snap your fingers and you're woken out of it. A goal is something that you set and you go forward to it. You take those steps to it. You got to crawl before you walk, especially in this industry, because one, you don't make a lot of, like Kiara said, like I'm going to tell anybody, you don't make a lot of money coming out the gate. Kiara's not instantly going to be a Spike Lee. I'm not going to instantly be a Kevin Hart coming out here making $40-50 million for a stand-up special. And Kiara's not going to have $100 million budget, and she's not going to cast a Chadwick Boseman or a Denzel Washington
or a
Halle Berry into those films. So it's just about what I was told by James Cooper from the venue on 35th Street. the job that you work now, that should be able to fund your goals that you want to go forward to. So if you flipping burgers at McDonald's or Wendy's, the money that you get from McDonald's, Wendy's, you should put some to the side if you want to chase those dreams to be a creativepreneur or entrepreneur, or you want to flip houses or potentially end up buying anything. So that's my jewels that I'm gonna drop for you right there, because at the end of the day, you just gotta go out there and pursue it. When it comes to the film, matter of fact, I'm gonna go film in general because something happened 2 years ago that never happened before. Denzel Washington's been in the industry for years.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did his first sequel. Why do you say that we don't see a lot of sequels in black movies?
A lot of it deals with how the content is written. Because if you look at a lot of, like, for me, I grew up watching the BET ending. I used to watch a lot of BET ending movies. I watched a lot of Hallmark movies.
Right.
If you look at those, they're not necessarily geared towards you having a sequel.
They're not.
They're not. They're just the way the story is outlined, the way it's set up and written is not really meant to have a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like, okay, and but people tend to leave you on that cliffhanger. For instance, this is what, the third Bad Boys movie coming out?
Yeah.
And how long has it been since the last one?
And then look how long it took to make the second one.
It's all how long it took to take the second one, because they knew that fan base is there, and that fan base has aged, so they're waiting on that fan base to age some more, so that way when those people come back to see Bad Boys 3, they've aged, like, and they can follow that story better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about touching your fan base and how you've aged, because everybody eventually ages out of something.
That's true. So, Kiara, this has been a great conversation. We have these conversations on a regular basis outside of this podcast. Is there anything that you want to say? Because we're gonna go ahead and get everything straight. Anything that you want?
Well, to all my creativepreneurs, keep going. Don't let someone else's rainstorms and thunderstorms come into your sunshine. And all it takes is the faith of a mustard seed to get things growing. And if you're looking for me, I'm taking all new clients at Kiki J Productions. Feel free to find me on Facebook. You can also email me at kikijproductions@gmail.com.
Before we go for the No ID podcast, I do got to ask this question because I ask everybody this question. Favorite comedians, top 5.
I say Martin Lawrence.
Okay.
Bernie Mac.
Great, brilliant mind.
D.L. Hughley.
Excellent.
Lavelle Crawford.
Lavelle.
And Cedric the Entertainer.
Okay. I guess I'm your starting 6. I'm your 6th man coming off the bench. What comedian influenced you in this industry?
Martin Lawrence.
And why is that?
Because Martin Lawrence came at a time in the 90s and no one was doing what he was doing. Like, everybody talks about, oh, I got a Bitmoji. But Martin Lawrence was the first person to use a Bitmoji in the 90s. So he was the first person to create those emojis that look like you. If you look at when he changed his theme song and how the show opens, he was the first person to use a Bitmoji. And he was telling everyday stories. And he was a one-man production in a sense, because you got to think, he wasn't paying nobody to be Shanae and Roscoe and Bob from accounting and Mr. Otis. He won't pay nobody to do that. That was him doing it, just acting upon what he knew, and it was raw.
It was raw because this. Let me tell you something. This was a true story. They was talking about it on House Party, right? Mm-hmm. So Martin was coming up because he was doing HBO Def Comedy Jam, right? Yeah. And he got put on House Party. If y'all don't know Bilal, Dragon Breath, that's what people like to refer to him. And he went up to Tisha Campbell and asked her, did she want to be on Martin?
And then she went and found Tashina Arnold, because they always put each other on. Like, they worked together. That's how they wound up in Little Shops of Horrors together. Right. They were working in the call center, and one of them got the call, so she took the other one with her. So that's why they always together, because if one going somewhere with me, if I can go somewhere and I can take that person with me, they always took each other with them.
And that's the mentality we need to have.
Yep.
And then I liked it because, everything was different on that show. I'm sorry, that show was just, I don't mean to get off topic, that show was just, in my opinion, genius.
He was timeless, because even now you can sit back and I'm 28, I can sit back and watch Martin and be like, oh, I can relate to that, or oh, I see that, or oh, I see that, because he touched on a wide range of things.
He did touch on a wide range of things.
Things that are still relevant. That's what keeps him relevant.
Mm-hmm. He does. Um, so Martin Lawrence was your influence to start. Did you know? Because I watched this interview he did with not Martin Lawrence. Well, Martin Lawrence was Will Smith was the shot with LeBron James. He told me he was trying to be an actor before he became a comedian.
Yeah.
And then he got to be a comedian. He went to acting, and of course he did producing. And then he started doing movies too. So was a Thin Line Between Love and Hate. He wrote, directed, produced that one, which is excellent, by the way. Great storytelling. He had a couple. Was it Telling Jokes After Dark? He had a couple of comedy specials. I know he's gonna be here in February. Most recent one I remember seeing was Run Tell That. He did a Disney movie with Raven Simone.
Yeah, so he's stretched across all audiences.
He has a range.
He has a range. He's not limited. He's range.
All right. So once again, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off on this one, Kiara. I appreciate you coming out to the No ID podcast. Make sure you follow us, okay, on Instagram at no_I.D podcast on Instagram. When you follow me, I'll follow back. You can also follow my comedy page on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Rome Davis Comedy. You subscribe to me, I subscribe back. Like, comment, share, post, rate. This podcast is available on all major streaming platforms. We are from SoundCloud. We're on Buzzsprout. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can actually Google Jerome Davis No ID Podcast and find me as well too on your Google browser as well too. Kiara, what is your social media handles?
Kiki J Productions on Instagram. We have a Facebook page, and we're launching our YouTube page in the middle of 2020.
In the middle of 2020. All right, we're signing off on a No ID podcast where normal people are doing extraordinary things and chasing their dreams. This is Rome Davis, and we got Kiara Davis, aka Kiki J Production. We're signing off. Thank y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all support. Y'all have a good day.